3.3 million students apply to colleges and universities every year. According to the National Census of Education, only 2.2 million get accepted, which makes this only 66% of the population. Admissions offices are responsible for determining whether an undergraduate is accepted into a university. Most offices have policies on accepting students such as a 10% plan, athletic scholarships, and more. However, the most notorious and scandalous plan is affirmative action.
A lawsuit against Harvard ending the first week of trial where at issue is whether the university imposes a cap on the number of qualified Asian American students that it admits. But is it really just an attempt to set back the entire notion of affirmative action?
Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders are part of the next big fight over affirmative action.
A group of Asian American students suing Harvard University, accusing the school of unfairly giving preference to other racial minorities.
So, what is affirmative action?
The Negro baby born in America today, regardless of the section of the state in which he is born, has about one-half as much chance of completing a high school as a white baby, born in the same place on the same day. 1/3 as much chance of completing college.
Affirmative action was created in Executive Order 10925, signed by President John F. Kennedy in 1961. It required government employees to not discriminate against any employee or applicant of employment because of race, creed, color, or national origin. The purpose of affirmative action is to promote social equality through the preferential treatment of socioeconomically disadvantaged people. 3 years after the signing of the executive order, President Johnson passed the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which ended segregation in public places and banned employment discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. In an attempt to enforce desegregation of public universities, LBJ also passed the Title IV of Higher Education Act of 1965 and required universities to use affirmative action. Ever since then, affirmative action is used in colleges across the United States, including Harvard, UT Austin, UC Berkeley, spreading like a bacteria and spreading afar. Colleges instituted a racial quota, a numerical requirement for admitting members of a certain racial group. During our research of affirmative action and the college admission process, we interviewed Henry Canfield, a college and career counselor for Collin Community College and an expert in college processing.
So can you just briefly describe what you exactly do every day?
Sure. So as a college and career counselor, my big role is helping students figure out what to do after high school. I guess that's the easiest way. Whether that means going to Collin or not, right? A student wants to try and get into Harvard, or if they want to try and be a welder, or anything in between. I just kind of try and help guide and help them figure out the best path to get to that goal. So maybe that's transferring from Collin, maybe that's getting a certificate or earning an associate's degree, or what kind of grad school they might want to go to, and just kind of helping students explore their options and help them figure out how to get there.
Then we asked Mr. Canfield about the history of affirmative.
I think it was started for a really good reason, right? Too many people were being overlooked for jobs. Too many people were being overlooked for spots in universities. Too many people were being just overlooked or denied for no good reason, right?
Yeah.
And so the whole idea was to be able to make sure everyone had equal footing, I think. And it's been good in a lot of ways, I think, honestly. I think now some of the unintended consequences of it are a little more evident. Right? People hire people that are like them. That's just kind of the way it is most of the time. It's kind of human nature. We're often more comfortable with what we know. So I think in a way it really helped people kind of look outside of themselves a little bit. But yeah, I think there probably have been quite a few unintended consequences that kind of make it a good thing to kind of review and look at and see how they can change it or maybe make it better.
Several Asian American groups are saying they're being punished for their success. A group called Students for Fair Admissions is suing Harvard University for discrimination, saying the school limited its number of Asian students in preference for white students. Jeannie Suk Gerson is a professor at Harvard Law School, and she joins us from Cambridge. Nice to see you, Professor Gerson. Thank you for your time. Can you walk us through this lawsuit, explain exactly what's sort of at stake here?
Well, the lawsuit takes place under a law called Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. It is not a constitutional case. It involves a federal law that prohibits discrimination in activities and programs that receive federal funding.
I guess my biggest experience with that in a way is I lived and worked in China for over 13 years in education at a small private bilingual school, specifically in Shanghai. And so I had a lot of students who are Asian and found it more difficult to get into the higher level, highly selective schools that they wanted to. And for many of them, it was, they complained about affirmative action, limiting their ability to get into the schools they wanted to get into.
The negative effect of affirmative action and discrimination led to a couple of trials dealing with the affirmative action. One major legal case that dealt with affirmative action was the Students for Fair Admissions versus Harvard trial. The Students for Fair Admissions, or the SFFA, sought to ban affirmative action and sued Harvard for discrimination against Asian Americans in its colleges, as described in this clip from CNN.
The lawsuit against Harvard University for discriminating against Asian American applicants just took a new twist, with claims that the bias against them is a, quote, personal thing, including such traits as positive personality, likability, and attractive to be with. This, according to federal court filings in Boston on Friday by the group called Students for Fair Admissions, based on an analysis of more than 160,000 student records. Their argument is that Asian Americans scored higher than other racial or ethnic groups on quantifiable measures like test scores, grades, and extracurricular activities, only to be rejected via the more subjective personal ratings. Here's the question: is there an unspoken quota on the number of Asians at the Ivies?
Before choosing sides, we should evaluate both sides of the coin. The SFFA advocates for narrow focus on academic achievement. However, Harvard, on the other hand, always stresses the significance of non-academic factors such as athletics, character, and family connections. First of all, athletic preferences at elite colleges such as Harvard mostly benefit white applicants. According to the Boston Review at Harvard, 3/4 of athletics admitted into the college were white, contradicting what affirmative action was meant to be. As for character, Harvard uses personal ratings that judges the applicant's personal traits, which is awarded by alumni, interviewers, and Harvard's internal admissions staff. When looking at the proportion of applicants that receive top personal rating, you see that Harvard staff are more likely to rate white alumni higher than Asian Americans. White alumni interviewers remained unprejudiced in their rating, as shown in the graph, where Asian and white applicants at closer rates are approximately 65%. Harvard staff, on the other hand, put 23% of Asian Americans and 31% of whites in the top personal ratings.
Colleges won't talk about quotas, but they will talk about this sense of we're trying to create a community in a school, which means we need X number of ballet dancers and X number of football players and X number of people who are, perfect on their SATs and X number of people from these areas and some people from this area. And that allows them that variability to say SAT scores and test grades are not just what we look at. Is that going to be a challenging legal argument?
Well, so the word quotas is a very vexed word. It is a word that is forbidden, a concept that is forbidden because of a Supreme Court case from the 1970s that forbade schools to take into account race in the sense of having a racial quota. However, the Supreme Court has said you can take into account race as one of many variables that you consider in admitting a candidate. And so as long as you think of it as one variable among many, it is permitted under law.
What do you think is the ultimate impact of this lawsuit?
I think the ultimate impact of this lawsuit, regardless of whether Harvard wins or loses, is that there will be some internal soul searching about its admissions process.
All of what Harvard is trying to do is limit Asian American success in America, as shown in the next clip, to allow other ethnic groups to prosper. In this very case, the SFFA argued that Harvard's aim for distinguishing excellence is significantly an effort to limit the number of Asian Americans on its campus. As we evaluate Harvard's admission policies, we assert that Harvard is definitely benefiting from white applicants and discriminating against Asian Africans to fill its racial quotas, as described in a CNN interview with VJ Chokol Ingram.
Chokol Ingram, now the head of admissions consultant at Interview SOS, has a unique experience with this topic. An Indian American, he realized the only way that he would be accepted at med school would be to pass as black. He chronicled his experiences in his book, Almost Black, the true story of how I got into medical school by pretending to be black. VJ Chokol Ingram joins me now. So you were studying statistics at the University of Chicago, and you say to yourself, I don't stand a chance with my 3.1. What did you do?
Well, I shaved my head, I trimmed my eyelashes, and I decided to join the organization of black students so I could apply to medical school as a black man. I also used my middle name, Jojo. I subsequently interviewed at medical schools across the country and managed to get waitlisted at Washington University and the University of Pennsylvania, then ranked the second and the third and fourth best medical schools in the country, and got into St. Louis University School of Medicine, despite the fact that my pretty pitiful 3.1 GPA was dramatically lower than their average of 3.7. Now,
it is immoral to allow affirmative action to prosper as it becomes a bacteria that harms college applicants. A policy which qualifies an individual based on their race should be banned across the United States. Instead, we should qualify people based on their achievements, such as grades, SAT scores, and extracurriculars. Affirmative action has two negative consequences. It creates a disadvantage for Asian Americans and Caucasians by removing worthy spots and enrollments to colleges and universities that would be given to African.
Sometime this past week, Texas Tech, their medical school, they've said they're going to stop using race in admissions at the medical school. I know California, right? Back in 1996, actually, Californians voted to ban race and gender preferences in government and in education. But most of the big universities in California have basically ignored that law that the majority of Californians voted on. I know, right, Asian students have pending lawsuits against Harvard and Yale and different places. But clearly something's not working as well as it could. I don't know that it should be banned per se, but I certainly think it's something that people should look at and decide, are the consequences really what it was initially set up to do, right? Are results really what it was supposed to be done in the first place, or are there a bunch of unintended consequences that are more negative for people?
Multiple states have voted to ban affirmative action, such as Florida, New Mexico, and Washington, but it can't officially be removed unless it becomes an executive order from the state. Policies designed to acknowledge achievements have been instituted in a few states. One of the most notorious examples is the Texas Percent Plan, which states that if a student is in the top 10 or 7% of the senior class, they receive automatic admission to a UT Austin campus. Affirmative action was created for good intentions but executed poorly. We should be assessed from our ability to strive for academic excellence, not our genetics, from our ability to learn, not our personal characteristics, and from our ability to change the world with our knowledge, not our race or color. Join us by signing your petitions on change.org to end affirmative action. Join us for protesting against affirmative action on social media. This would help develop a cure to cleanse the bacteria. We should encourage everyone to join us to contribute in this effort. This cure and end affirmative action bacteria once and for all.